Stop for a second before you sell, donate, or throw away any old birthstone jewelry, because what you are about to hear could completely change your mind. Millions of people own old rings, pendants, and bracelets with colored stones in them, pieces given as birthday gifts, graduation presents, or family heirlooms passed down from a mother or grandmother, and almost nobody stops to think that these pieces could actually be worth real money. Most people assume birthstone jewelry is cheap because it was often sold in mall stores or given as a simple sentimental gift rather than a big, expensive purchase. But here's the truth that hardly anyone talks about. Some birthstone jewelry made decades ago used real, natural gemstones instead of the lab-grown or synthetic stones that fill most stores today, and those older natural stones are becoming rarer and more valuable every single year. On top of that, certain birthstone pieces were made by well-known jewelry companies using solid gold settings instead of cheap plated metal, which means the gold alone inside these pieces can be worth hundreds of dollars, even before anyone considers the value of the stone itself. I'm talking about small rings and simple necklaces that people assumed were just costume jewelry, pieces worth $200, $500, sometimes well over $1,000 once someone finally had them properly checked. Imagine finding out that the little birthstone ring sitting in your jewelry box, the one you always thought was just an inexpensive gift from years ago, is actually worth more than you ever imagined. This happens more often than people realize, and it could be happening to you right now without you even knowing it. That is exactly why I made this video today. I'm going to walk you through common pieces of birthstone jewelry, the kind of jewelry almost every single family owns somewhere in a drawer, a jewelry box, or an old keepsake case, and I am going to explain exactly why some of these pieces are secretly worth a small fortune. Some of you watching right now might already own one of these pieces without ever realizing it. I promise you, by the time this video ends, you're going to want to go straight to your jewelry box and check everything you own, because some of what I'm about to share is going to genuinely surprise you. So do not skip ahead. Do not click away, and definitely pay close attention. Because if you miss even a small detail, you could be missing out on real money that has been sitting quietly in your own home this entire time. Stay with me until the very end, because near the final part of this video, I'm also going to show you simple, easy signs you can look for yourself right at home with nothing but your own eyes, so you can figure out whether your own birthstone jewelry might be one of these hidden treasures. Even if you know nothing at all about gemstones or jewelry, think about how many birthstone pieces have passed through your own family without anyone ever stopping to look closely at them. A ring given as a sweet 16 present that got tucked away and forgotten. A small pendant given by a grandfather that nobody ever thought to have appraised. A bracelet inherited after a relative passed away, sitting quietly in a box because nobody knew what to do with it or whether it was even worth keeping. Birthstone jewelry has this strange reputation of being seen as purely sentimental, something with emotional value, but no real financial value. And that assumption is exactly what causes so many valuable pieces to slip through unnoticed for years, sometimes even decades. Nobody expects a small colored stone gift from a birthday decades ago to actually be worth serious money, so nobody ever bothers checking. And that simple, honest oversight is exactly how so much hidden value quietly disappears every single year, sold cheap, donated, or simply lost, without anyone ever knowing what it truly was. Jewelry stores and pawn shops rarely explain this to customers either, because pointing out that an old, forgotten piece might actually be worth more than something brand new sitting in their display case simply is not in their interest. And that quiet silence is exactly why so many families keep undervaluing what they already own. That is exactly the gap I want to help close today, because knowledge like this should not be locked away for professional appraisers and jewelry experts only. Everyday people deserve to understand the real value of the sentimental pieces sitting quietly in their own homes, especially pieces that carry both emotional meaning and genuine financial worth at the very same time. Let's start talking about the pieces you need to pay close attention to. One of the most overlooked pieces is old garnet jewelry, the deep red birthstone for January. A lot of people see a red stone and assume it is either glass or cheap imitation, but many older garnet rings and necklaces used real, natural garnet set in solid gold, and the deep, rich color of a genuine antique garnet is something collectors specifically search for. A well-made garnet ring from decades ago, especially one in a Victorian or Edwardian style setting, can sell for $200 to $800, sometimes more if the design is especially detailed. Next is old amethyst jewelry, the purple birthstone for February. Amethyst used to be considered incredibly rare and valuable, almost as valuable as diamonds, before large deposits were discovered and prices dropped. Because of that history, older amethyst pieces made before large-scale mining, especially ones with a deep, rich purple color instead of a pale, washed-out shade, are still highly desired by collectors today, with fine examples bringing several $100s. Then there is old aquamarine jewelry, the soft blue-green birthstone for March. Aquamarine has a delicate, watery color that a lot of people mistake for cheap blue glass or synthetic spinel, but genuine aquamarine has a distinct clarity and sparkle that experienced buyers can spot right away. And well-cut vintage aquamarine pieces in solid gold settings regularly sell for $300 to $1,000. Moving along, we have old diamond birthstone jewelry from April, and this one surprises a lot of people because they assume anything with a small diamond must be worth very little. Small, old-cut diamonds from before modern cutting techniques, especially ones with a warm, slightly yellow tint instead of a bright white color, are now considered rare and desirable by collectors who specifically want that old-fashioned sparkle. And even a modest antique diamond ring can be worth several hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on the setting and the quality of the stone. These older cuts, often called mine cuts or rose cuts, were shaped by hand rather than by precise modern machinery, which gives them a softer, warmer glow under candlelight or lamplight, compared to the sharp, icy sparkle of a modern diamond. And that distinctive warmth is exactly what many collectors are searching for today. Next up is old emerald jewelry, the rich green birthstone for May. Genuine antique emeralds are extremely valuable, but here is the important part. Even smaller, lower quality emeralds set in solid gold from decades ago can still sell for a surprising amount, especially if the piece has an interesting design or comes from a known jewelry maker, with prices often ranging from $400 to over $1,000. Now here comes a piece that almost everyone owns and almost everyone underestimates, and that is old pearl birthstone jewelry for June. A simple string of pearls or a small pearl ring might look plain and old-fashioned, but as we have talked about before, older pearls often have a thicker, richer layer of natural shine than modern pearls. And a genuine vintage pearl piece with a solid gold clasp or setting can easily sell for $300 to $1,500. Another piece worth checking is old ruby jewelry, the deep red birthstone for July, which is often confused with garnet but has a completely different value. Genuine rubies, even small ones, are incredibly rare compared to most other colored gemstones, and an old ruby ring or pendant in a solid gold setting, especially one with a deep, vivid red color, can be worth anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s. Then there is old peridot jewelry, the bright green birthstone for August. Peridot has a unique, almost neon green color that a lot of people assume is a cheap glass imitation. But genuine peridot pieces from the early to mid-1900s, especially larger stones with strong color, can bring $200 to $700, sometimes more for exceptional pieces. Another important one is old sapphire jewelry, the deep blue birthstone for September. Sapphires are much more affordable than diamonds, but still genuinely precious. And older sapphire rings and pendants set in solid gold or platinum, especially ones with a rich, velvety blue color, regularly sell for $600 to $2,000 or more depending on the size and clarity of the stone. And finally, there's old opal jewelry, the colorful, shimmering birthstone for October. Opals have a delicate rainbow-like sparkle that is genuinely difficult to fake convincingly. And old opal pieces, especially ones from before the widespread use of synthetic opal, can be worth $400 to $1,500 when the stone shows strong, vivid color and the setting is intact and undamaged. If you happen to own even one piece of old birthstone jewelry from any of these categories, garnet, amethyst, aquamarine, diamond, emerald, pearl, ruby, peridot, sapphire, or opal, you genuinely need to stop what you're doing and take a much closer look at what you have, because you might be holding something far more valuable than you ever imagined possible. A simple trick that helps with almost every one of these stones is comparing how they behave in natural sunlight versus indoor lighting. Genuine natural gemstones often shift slightly in tone depending on the light source, showing subtle variations in depth and warmth, while cheap glass or synthetic imitations tend to look exactly the same no matter where you hold them, flat and unchanging under every kind of light. Another simple thing to check is temperature. Real gemstones, especially stones like sapphire, emerald, and ruby, tend to feel cool against your skin for longer than glass or plastic imitations, which warm up almost instantly the moment you hold them in your hand. These are not perfect scientific tests, but they are the kind of small, easy clues that can help you decide whether a piece deserves a proper professional look or whether it is genuinely just simple costume jewelry with no real hidden value behind it. There's also something worth mentioning about why birthstone jewelry specifically holds this kind of hidden value. Unlike jewelry bought purely for fashion, birthstone pieces were almost always given with real sentimental meaning. For a birthday, a graduation, an anniversary, or as a family heirloom passed from one generation to the next. Because of that sentimental value, families often kept these pieces safe and protected instead of wearing them constantly, which means a surprising number of old birthstone pieces have survived in excellent condition, tucked away in drawers and jewelry boxes for decades without ever being damaged, scratched, or lost. This is part of why so many of these pieces are quietly increasing in value today, because good condition antique pieces are becoming harder and harder to find as time goes on, while demand from collectors and jewelry lovers continues to grow every single year. Another detail worth knowing is that older birthstone jewelry almost always used natural, untreated stones, because the advanced heating and treatment methods used to enhance cheaper stones today simply did not exist decades ago. This means that a genuine vintage birthstone piece is often naturally rarer and more valuable than a similar-looking modern piece, even if the stone itself looks smaller or less flashy at first glance, because natural, untreated color is something serious collectors specifically pay extra for. It also helps to understand how these older pieces were actually made, because that knowledge explains a lot about why some of them hold such surprising value today. Many birthstone rings and pendants from the early to mid-1900s were handmade by small local jewelers rather than mass-produced in a factory, which means each piece often has small, unique details in the setting, the prongs, or the engraving that simply cannot be found in modern machine-made jewelry. When a piece can be traced to a specific decade or a specific style of craftsmanship, its value to collectors often increases significantly, especially if the piece has survived without major damage or repair work. Condition plays an enormous role here as well, because a birthstone piece with its original stone intact, no visible cracks, no cloudy discoloration, and a setting that has not been bent or reshaped will always be worth considerably more than a similar piece that has been poorly cared for over the years. This is another reason why it matters so much how you store your own jewelry, keeping pieces separated instead of letting them tangle together in one drawer, because scratches, loosened prongs, and chipped stones can quietly reduce the value of an otherwise valuable find without you ever realizing it happened. Another thing worth understanding is that interest in specific birthstones tends to shift over time, meaning a stone that was only mildly popular among collectors a decade ago can suddenly become highly sought after because of a renewed interest in vintage style, a popular trend in fashion, or simply because fewer well-preserved examples remain in circulation as the years go by. This constantly shifting demand is part of why it genuinely pays to hold on to older birthstone jewelry rather than getting rid of it quickly. Because value in this space tends to rise steadily over time as fewer original pieces survive, and as new generations of collectors discover and fall in love with these older styles all over again. Now here's exactly what I want you to do the moment this video ends. Go straight to your jewelry box. Your grandmother's old jewelry case or that forgotten box hiding somewhere in your closet or attic, and start carefully examining every single birthstone piece you own, one at a time. Look closely at the setting for any small stamped marks. Check whether the metal looks like real gold instead of a shiny plated coating, and take a real close look at the stone itself under good light to see if the color looks deep, natural, and rich, instead of flat and artificial. That one little detail, a genuine stamped mark or a naturally rich color, could genuinely be the difference between owning a piece that is worth almost nothing and owning a piece that is quietly worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right buyer. Please do not judge a piece of birthstone jewelry just because it looks small, simple, or old-fashioned. Because as you just learned throughout this entire video, some of the most valuable jewelry in the world was never flashy or attention-grabbing in the first place. It was made from genuine, natural stones and solid gold created decades ago with a level of craftsmanship and quality that most people today completely underestimate, simply because the piece looks modest at first glance. It is also worth remembering that, unlike a huge, obvious diamond ring, a small birthstone piece was never designed to shout its value from across the room, which is exactly why so many of these pieces survive quietly for generations, without anyone realizing what they actually are. They're passed along simply because they were sentimental rather than because anyone understood their true financial worth. And please, before you ever decide to sell, donate, or throw away any old birthstone jewelry, whether it belonged to you, your mother, or your grandmother, take just a few extra minutes to research it properly or show it to someone who genuinely knows what they are looking for, because countless people have accidentally given away a small fortune without ever realizing what they truly had in their hands. This step takes so little effort compared to what you might lose by skipping it, a short trip to a local jeweler, a quick photo sent to an online appraiser, or even a simple search using the markings stamped inside the setting, and yet so few people ever bother to take that step before letting a piece go for good. If this video opened your eyes to something you never knew before today, please do me a small favor and give this video a thumbs up, because it genuinely helps this channel continue making videos exactly like this one. Videos dedicated to uncovering the hidden value in everyday things that most people walk right past without a second thought. And if you want to keep seeing more videos just like this one, covering old necklaces, forgotten rings, vintage bracelets, and other everyday pieces that could secretly be worth a small fortune, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications, because new videos exactly like this one are posted regularly. And trust me, you genuinely do not want to miss the next one, especially if it